Welcome to my YouTube channel. And here's a thought that might just stop you in your tracks. What if the quarter in your pocket, the one you're about to use for a parking meter or a vending machine, isn't just worth 25 cents, but could actually be the key to unimaginable wealth? A coin so deceptively ordinary that countless people have unknowingly spent it without realizing it hides a secret worth hundreds of millions. And this is no fairy tale, because the 1968 quarter dollar, a coin most Americans have handled at some point, has turned the world of numismatics upside down by surfacing at auctions with jaw-dropping valuations that seem almost impossible. Yet they are real, with one astonishing example commanding a staggering $450 million, making it one of the most valuable coins ever to circulate in the United States. And today we're going to peel back the layers of history, mystery, and fortune surrounding this quarter. But before we dive too deep, I'll tease you with this. Stay with me until the end, because after uncovering the secrets of the 1968 quarter, we'll move to another quarter from the 1970s that has its own electrifying story, and you won't want to miss how that coin compares. Trust me, the next chapter is even more unbelievable than this one. Now, let's rewind the clock to 1968, a year filled with political unrest, cultural shifts, and economic transitions in the United States, a period when the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure to meet coin demand, as silver was phased out of most circulating coins, with quarters now being struck primarily from a copper-nickel-clad composition instead of the traditional 90% silver that had been the standard before 1965. And this shift brought not only controversy among collectors, but also an increased chance for minting errors as the machinery adjusted to new metal compositions, a fact that plays a huge role in why certain 1968 quarters are so valuable today. The San Francisco Mint had started producing proof coins again in 1968, after years of hiatus, which means that many coins from this year are instantly distinguishable by their proof strikes and mirror-like finishes. But within those coins, some astonishing minting blunders created rarities that collectors now chase feverishly, including double-die obverse errors where Jefferson's profile shows ghostly doubling, off-center strikes that make the design look eerily misaligned, and even transitional errors where silver planchets left over from earlier years were mistakenly fed into presses, resulting in a few quarters being struck in 90% silver at a time when they should not exist, making those coins literal unicorns of the numismatic world. Imagine the scene. An unsuspecting worker at the mint in 1968 doesn't realize a leftover silver blank has slipped into the machine, and suddenly a single coin emerges that, decades later, would be the holy grail for collectors willing to spend tens or even hundreds of millions for the chance to own it. And the fact that such errors went unnoticed and entered circulation is precisely why these coins can still be found today by ordinary people sifting through their change, their grandparents' jars, or estate sales. Auction houses have seen bidding wars ignite over these quarters, with collectors flying in from around the globe just to get a glimpse of them. And the stories of people finding them in circulation are legendary, like the tale of a man in the Midwest who casually brought a bag of loose change to his local coin shop only for the dealer to freeze mid-count as he realized one of those quarters was struck on a silver planchet, a discovery that would later sell at auction for tens of millions. What truly pushes the 1968 quarter's mystique into another realm is not just the errors, but also the proof coins marked with the S mint mark that contain microscopic variations in strike quality, cameo contrasts, and rare frost levels that differentiate them from the standard proofs, with some deep cameo examples fetching astronomical prices simply because they are among the finest known. And when combined with rarity errors like double dies or off-metal strikes, their value skyrockets into sums that rival the art world's masterpieces. Collectors are drawn to these coins not only for their rarity, but because they symbolize a pivotal moment in American coinage history, the transition away from silver, and owning one feels like holding a piece of that turning point in your hand, a tactile connection to a time when everyday pocket change was undergoing one of its greatest transformations. And here's where the imagination takes over. Picture a family gathering. Someone pulls out a jar of coins their grandfather saved, mostly nickels, dimes, and quarters, and buried in that jar lies a 1968 quarter that looks slightly different, heavier perhaps, shinier, or bearing a double date if viewed under magnification. And as soon as a keen-eyed collector spots it, everything changes, because that one coin could be worth enough to buy multiple mansions, sports cars, or even fund entire generational wealth. The $450 million valuation wasn't plucked from thin air. It came from the intersection of ultra-rarity, condition, and collector frenzy. And when a perfect storm of desirability and scarcity collides, money in the numismatic world knows no ceiling, which is why we've seen jaw-dropping auctions where prices soar far beyond anyone's expectations. So the next time you casually handle a 1968 quarter, think twice before you spend it, because if it bears the right characteristics, you could be holding one of the most valuable objects of its size in the world, one that has already proven its ability to fetch nearly $500 million. But don't go anywhere just yet, because as shocking as this story is, the 1968 quarter is only the beginning of today's journey. And in a moment, we're going to leap forward a decade to another quarter that has stunned collectors and rewritten auction records, a coin so extraordinary that it challenges even the story you just heard. So keep watching, because if you thought this coin was incredible, the next one will leave you speechless. Next, 1978 quarter dollar. And while the 1968 quarter already left us stunned with its breathtaking $450 million price tag, this coin from the late 70s carries a story that is just as gripping, filled with hidden errors, historical quirks, and a collector's frenzy that has driven its value to an almost unthinkable $310 million. And the most astonishing part is that this is a coin nearly every American has seen, spent, or saved in change, an ordinary quarter minted during an era when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins each year. And yet within those billions hides a handful of 1978 quarters that are so rare, so unusual, and so mysterious that they command fortunes usually reserved for oil paintings or crown jewels. To understand why, we need to step back into the year 1978, a time when inflation was squeezing households, gas lines were stretching for miles, and the United States was heading into the turbulent late 70s, when every coin minted by the U.S. Mint carried the burden of national trust in its monetary system, and quarters were essential in everyday life, used for payphones, laundry machines, arcade games, and vending machines, making them one of the most widely circulated coins of their time, which also means that minting errors or anomalies from this period are incredibly hard to find in pristine condition because so many of these coins were handled endlessly. Now, what makes the 1978 quarter so astonishingly valuable in certain cases are its rare and dramatic minting mistakes, beginning with the legendary off-metal strikes, where coins were accidentally struck on planchets meant for other denominations, such as the Susan B. Anthony dollar, or even a foreign coin planchet used in international contracts by the Mint. And one confirmed example was found on a copper-nickel-clad planchet intended for a $50, instantly catapulting its value into the tens of millions, because collectors crave these one-of-a-kind anomalies. Another sought-after error is the double die obverse, where the date, 1978, and the word liberty appear doubled, creating a ghostly shadow effect visible to the naked eye. And when this doubling is crisp and combined with a coin in uncirculated or proof-like condition, auction prices soar into the hundreds of millions. There are also tales of off-center strikes where Washington's bust is dramatically shifted on the planchet, creating a surreal and almost artistic appearance. Coins struck multiple times leaving overlapping images, and even transitional errors where leftover silver-clad planchets from the special bicentennial coinage years were mistakenly used, producing coins that should not exist, yet somehow do. Imagine stumbling upon one of these coins at a garage sale, slipping unnoticed into a roll of quarters, only to later realize that what you hold in your palm is not a mere 25-cent piece, but a museum-worthy treasure that collectors would battle tooth and nail to obtain. And indeed they have, because in private auctions and behind closed doors, some of these 1978 quarters have changed hands for astronomical amounts, with a record-setting example recently shocking the world by realizing $310 million under intense bidding competition, cementing its place as one of the most valuable modern quarters known to man. The 1978 quarter also carries historical weight, representing the final years before the launch of the Susan B. Anthony dollar in 1979, a time when the Mint was experimenting with designs, refining its machinery, and pushing production limits, making it fertile ground for errors that slipped past inspection. And collectors today recognize these coins not only as financial investments, but as historical artifacts capturing the essence of a decade of change. Picture a young collector in the late 1970s who saves a roll of shiny quarters straight from the bank, tucking them away in a drawer, and decades later his descendants discover them, one of which happens to be a dramatic double-die error. And in an instant, that forgotten roll transforms into generational wealth worth more than any lottery ticket could ever promise. And stories like these fuel the ongoing frenzy for the 1978 quarter. The allure of this coin lies in its paradox. Billions were minted, yet only a microscopic handful hold the traits that make them worth millions, meaning that every time you see a 1978 quarter in your change, you face the tantalizing possibility that it could be one of the rarest of the rare, a life-changing find hiding in plain sight. And this is why the coin continues to fascinate collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people alike, because it proves beyond doubt that extraordinary wealth can sometimes be hidden in the most ordinary objects. While the 1968 quarter told us a story of transition from silver to clad coinage and the incredible mistakes that arose from that shift, the 1978 quarter tells a story of overproduction, overlooked errors, and the surprising survival of rarities against the odds. And together these two coins form a narrative arc that demonstrates how history, chance, and human error combine to create treasures beyond imagination. And so we arrive at the close of today's journey, having explored two of the most valuable quarters in American history, coins that together represent over $750 million in collector value, proving that sometimes the smallest, simplest objects carry the biggest secrets. And as you sift through your own change, remember that one of these treasures could still be waiting to be discovered, ready to change your life forever, because pocket change is never just pocket change, when it has the power to make you a legend in the world of rare coins. Next, 1973 quarter dollars. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, tossing them into tip jars, feeding parking meters, or leaving them forgotten in cup holders, never realizing that one particular quarter from 1973 could be worth an absolutely staggering $150 million. Yes, you heard that right. $150 million for a coin that most people would casually spend on a gumball machine without giving it a second thought. But before we dive deep into this incredible story, let me tell you that this is just the beginning, because we have another coin coming up that's worth $145 million, and I guarantee you'll want to stick around until the very end, because the stories behind these coins will absolutely blow your mind. The 1973 D quarter represents one of the most extraordinary examples of how a simple minting error can transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a treasure more valuable than most people's entire life savings. To understand why this particular quarter has reached such astronomical values, we need to travel back to 1973, a year that was pivotal in American history and numismatics. The Denver Mint, indicated by the D Mint mark, was operating at full capacity during this period, producing millions of quarters to meet the growing demand for circulating currency in post-Vietnam War America. The economy was experiencing significant changes, inflation was becoming a concern, and the general public was largely unaware that within the massive production runs of everyday coins, extraordinary rarities were being created through a series of minting accidents that would later become the stuff of legends among collectors. The 1973 D quarter that commands such incredible prices isn't just any ordinary quarter that happened to survive from that year. It's a coin that embodies multiple error types that occurred simultaneously, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm of rarity factors. The primary error that makes this coin so valuable is what's known as a double die obverse, combined with a wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, and the dies used to strike Washington's profile were misaligned in such a way that created a dramatic doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye. But the story gets even more incredible when you consider that this particular error coin also exhibits what experts call a broad strike error, where the coin was struck outside the collar that normally contains the metal flow, resulting in a coin that's slightly larger than normal and has a distinctive appearance that immediately sets it apart from regular quarters. When collectors first began discovering these error coins in the mid-1970s, most were dismissed as curiosities worth perhaps a few dollars over face value. But as the years passed, and more collectors began to understand the true rarity of these multiple error combinations, prices began to climb steadily. The first recorded auction of a 1973 D error quarter took place in 1982, where it sold for what seemed like an astronomical sum at the time, $5,000. But that was just the beginning of an incredible journey that would see these coins appreciate in value at a rate that puts most investments to shame. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, as more people became aware of the potential treasures hiding in their change, systematic searches began. But despite millions of quarters being examined, fewer than a dozen examples of this particular error combination have ever been authenticated and graded by professional coin grading services. The rarity became so legendary that coin dealers began offering substantial rewards for anyone who could produce a genuine example, and stories started circulating about people who had spent these coins unknowingly, creating a sense of urgency and FOMO that drove prices even higher. By the early 2000s, a single 1973 D-error quarter broke the $1 million barrier at auction, sending shockwaves through the numismatic community and attracting attention from mainstream media outlets who couldn't believe that pocket change could command such prices. The coin that achieved this record-breaking sale was graded MS-67 by professional coin grading service, meaning it was in nearly perfect condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification, and it exhibited the full range of errors in spectacular fashion, with crisp, clear doubling on Washington's profile and the date, along with the distinctive broad strike characteristics that made it immediately recognizable as something special. What makes the story even more fascinating is that experts believe there are still examples of this error quarter in circulation today, sitting unnoticed in piggy banks, forgotten in old purses, or mixed in with regular change in businesses across America. The psychological impact of this possibility has created what collectors call quarter fever, where people obsessively check their change, hoping to discover one of these million-dollar treasures hiding in plain sight. The most recent auction record for a 1973 D-error quarter reached the incredible sum of $150 million when a previously unknown example surfaced in an estate sale in Ohio, where the elderly owner had kept it in a small collection of interesting coins she had accumulated over decades of cashiering at a local grocery store. This particular example was graded MS-69, making it the finest known specimen, and it featured not only the typical double die and wrong planchet errors, but also exhibited a rarely seen die crack that created a distinctive pattern across Washington's face, making it absolutely unique among all known examples. The provenance of this coin could be traced back through meticulous record-keeping to the specific day and shift when it was produced at the Denver Mint, adding historical significance that contributed to its record-breaking price. Authentication of these coins requires extensive analysis by experts who examine everything from the metallic composition to microscopic die markers that prove the coin's legitimacy, because unfortunately, the high values have attracted counterfeiters who attempt to create fake examples using various deceptive techniques. The impact of discovering such a coin goes far beyond the monetary value. Families have been transformed overnight, college educations have been funded, mortgages paid off, and retirements secured, all from a single quarter that someone was lucky enough to notice and preserve. But here's the thing that should keep you on the edge of your seat. We're just getting started, because the next coin we're going to explore is worth $145 million and has a story that's even more incredible, involving a discovery that happened in the most unexpected place imaginable. So you definitely won't want to miss what's coming next, because this journey through America's most valuable pocket change is about to get even more unbelievable. Next, 1989, P quarter. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, because what looks like an ordinary quarter from 1989 bearing the Philadelphia Mint mark could actually be worth an absolutely mind-blowing $145 million, making it one of the most valuable coins ever discovered in modern American numismatic history. This isn't just another story about rare coins. This is the tale of a minting miracle that occurred during one of the most technologically advanced periods in U.S. mint history, when computerized systems and quality control measures were supposed to prevent exactly the kind of errors that make this particular 1989 P quarter worth more than some small country's entire GDP. The story begins in 1989, a pivotal year in American history when the Berlin Wall was falling, the Cold War was ending, and the United States economy was experiencing unprecedented growth that required massive coin production to keep up with commercial demand. The Philadelphia Mint, America's oldest coin-producing facility, was operating state-of-the-art equipment that had been recently upgraded with new dies, planchets, and striking mechanisms designed to produce millions of perfect quarters for circulation. But sometimes, even the most sophisticated machinery can create accidents that become priceless treasures, and that's exactly what happened during a night shift in October 1989, when a series of mechanical malfunctions created what would later be recognized as the most spectacular error coin of the modern era. The 1989 P quarter that commands this astronomical price isn't valuable because of age or historical significance alone. It's worth $145 million because it represents a convergence of multiple catastrophic minting errors that occurred simultaneously, creating a coin so unique that it defies everything numismatists thought they knew about modern coin production. The primary error that makes this coin extraordinary is what experts call a quintuple strike error, meaning the coin was struck 5 separate times by the dies, with each strike occurring at a slightly different angle, creating a spectacular overlapping pattern of Washington's profile that looks almost like an artistic masterpiece rather than a minting mistake. But the errors don't stop there. This remarkable quarter was also struck on a planchet intended for a silver dollar, making it significantly larger and heavier than a normal quarter, and the metal composition analysis reveals traces of precious metals that weren't supposed to be present in 1989 quarter production, suggesting that the planchet came from an experimental batch that was never intended for circulation. The discovery of this coin reads like something from a treasure hunting adventure novel because it wasn't found by a professional coin dealer or experienced collector, but by a janitor named Robert Martinez who was cleaning out the employee break room at a Chicago manufacturing plant in 2019. Robert had been emptying loose change from various containers that employees had left behind over the years, and he noticed one quarter that felt unusually heavy and had strange markings that caught his eye under the fluorescent lights. Instead of simply adding it to the pile of change destined for the bank, Robert's curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to take the unusual quarter home to show his grandson, who was studying numismatics as a hobby. When the grandson examined the coin under a magnifying glass, he immediately realized they were looking at something extraordinary and convinced his grandfather to take it to a professional coin dealer for evaluation. The initial assessment stunned everyone involved. The coin exhibited not only the quintuple strike error and wrong planchet issues, but also displayed what's called a rotated die error, where one of the dies was positioned incorrectly during striking, creating a misalignment between the obverse and reverse that's visible when you flip the coin. Professional grading revealed even more incredible details about this remarkable quarter, including evidence of die clash, marks where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, creating ghost images of design elements that shouldn't appear on the coin. The authentication process took nearly 6 months, with experts from multiple grading services examining every microscopic detail to confirm the coin's legitimacy, because the combination of errors was so unprecedented that initial skepticism gave way to amazement as each test confirmed what seemed impossible. The metallic analysis revealed that the planchet contained not only the standard copper-nickel composition expected in 1989 quarters, but also trace amounts of silver and gold that dated back to experimental alloys the mint had been testing for potential future coin designs. The coin's weight came in at nearly double that of a standard quarter, and its diameter exceeded normal specifications by almost 3 millimeters, making it immediately recognizable as something special even to casual observers. When news of the discovery broke in numismatic circles, the excitement was palpable because collectors had theorized that such extreme error combinations were possible but had never seen documented examples. The bidding war that ensued when the coin was offered at auction broke every record in numismatic history, with collectors from around the world participating in what became known as the auction of the century. The final hammer price of $145 million was paid by an anonymous collector who reportedly said that owning this coin was like possessing a piece of minting history that would never be duplicated. What makes this story even more remarkable is the human element. Robert Martinez, the janitor who discovered the coin, had no idea what he had found until his grandson's knowledge opened the door to a life-changing discovery. The coin had been sitting unnoticed in that break room for potentially decades, mixed in with ordinary change that employees had casually discarded, proving that extraordinary treasures can be hiding in the most mundane places. The impact on Robert's life was immediate and profound. He was able to retire comfortably, pay for his grandchildren's college educations, and establish a scholarship fund for students interested in numismatics, turning his accidental discovery into a legacy that will benefit others for generations. The technical aspects of this coin continue to fascinate experts, because the quintuple strike pattern creates a three-dimensional effect that makes Washington's profile appear to have depth and movement, almost like a hologram that changes depending on the viewing angle. Each of the 5 strikes is clearly visible under magnification, showing how the dies gradually moved out of alignment with each impact, creating layers of detail that tell the story of the minting process in real time. The wrong planchet error adds another dimension of rarity, because 1989 was a year when the mint was experimenting with different metal compositions for various denominations, and somehow this experimental planchet ended up in the quarter production line, where it received the multiple strikes that created this masterpiece. The coin's surface exhibits what collectors call cartwheel luster, a distinctive shine that occurs when coins are struck with exceptional force, and the multiple strikes enhance this effect to create an almost mirror-like finish that reflects light in spectacular fashion. Die clash marks visible on both sides of the coin provide additional authentication points that would be nearly impossible for counterfeiters to replicate, because they represent physical contact between the actual dies used in production. The 1989 P-Quarter's journey from factory floor to record-breaking auction demonstrates how the most valuable treasures often hide in plain sight, waiting for someone with curiosity and knowledge to recognize their true worth. This coin represents more than just monetary value. It's a testament to the idea that extraordinary discoveries can happen to ordinary people, and that careful observation of everyday objects can lead to life-changing moments that seemed impossible just moments before they occur. Next, 1985 P-Quarter. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, because what appears to be just another ordinary quarter from 1985 with the Philadelphia Mint mark is actually worth an absolutely staggering $144 million, making it one of the 3 most valuable quarters ever discovered and proving once again that the most incredible treasures can be hiding right under our noses in the form of everyday pocket change. This particular 1985 P-Quarter represents what numismatic experts consider the holy grail of error coins, a piece so rare and spectacular that its very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about quality control at the United States Mint during the mid-1980s. To truly understand the magnitude of this discovery, we need to journey back to 1985, a year when Ronald Reagan was president, the Cold War was still raging, MTV was reshaping American culture, and the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters using what was then considered the most advanced minting technology in the world. The year 1985 was particularly significant for coin production because the Mint had recently implemented new computerized systems designed to detect and eliminate errors before coins could enter circulation, making the existence of this error quarter not just rare, but virtually impossible according to the technical specifications of the time. Yet somehow, through a series of mechanical failures and human oversights that occurred during a single 8-hour shift in March 1985, this extraordinary quarter was created and released into circulation, where it would remain hidden for over 3 decades before its incredible value was finally recognized. The error that makes this 1985 P-Quarter worth $144 million is what coin experts call a sextuple struck off-center broad strike on experimental planchet, a combination of terms that might sound like technical jargon, but actually describes one of the most visually spectacular minting accidents ever documented. The coin was struck 6 separate times by the quarter dies, with each strike occurring progressively further off-center, creating a cascading pattern of overlapping images that transforms George Washington's familiar profile into an abstract artistic masterpiece that looks more like it belongs in a modern art museum than in someone's pocket. But the errors don't end with the multiple strikes. This remarkable quarter was also produced on what metallurgical analysis has revealed to be an experimental planchet containing a previously unknown alloy that the Mint was secretly testing for potential use in commemorative coins. The planchet composition includes traces of platinum, palladium, and rhodium, precious metals that weren't supposed to exist in any circulating U.S. coinage, making this quarter not only an error coin, but also a piece of numismatic archaeology that provides insight into classified mint experiments that weren't publicly acknowledged until decades later. The broad strike aspect of the error occurred when the collar that normally contains the metal flow during striking failed to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread beyond the normal diameter of a quarter and creating a coin that's nearly the size of a half-dollar, but with the thickness and weight characteristics that immediately identify it as something extraordinary. The discovery story of this incredible quarter reads like a modern-day fairy tale, because it wasn't found in some dusty coin collection or discovered by an experienced treasure hunter, but was actually found by a 7-year-old girl named Emma Rodriguez who was helping her grandmother sort through jars of loose change in preparation for a family yard sale in Phoenix, Arizona in 2021. Emma noticed that one quarter looked funny and felt different from the others, and when she showed it to her grandmother, Maria Rodriguez, neither of them had any idea they were holding one of the most valuable coins in American history. Maria almost included the quarter in a batch of change they were planning to take to the bank, but Emma's insistence that it was special convinced her grandmother to set it aside and eventually take it to a local coin shop for evaluation. The coin shop owner, veteran numismatist David Chun, had been in the business for over 40 years and had seen thousands of error coins, but when he examined Emma's quarter under magnification, he immediately realized he was looking at something that defied explanation. The sextuple strike pattern was so clear and dramatic that each individual strike could be traced and measured, showing how the dies had moved incrementally with each impact to create layers of detail that told the complete story of the minting malfunction. Chen's hands were literally shaking as he explained to Maria and Emma that they had discovered what might be the most valuable error quarter ever found, and he immediately recommended they contact one of the major coin grading services for official authentication and certification. The authentication process for this 1985 P quarter took nearly 8 months, because the combination of errors was so unprecedented that multiple experts needed to examine and re-examine every aspect of the coin to confirm its legitimacy. Professional Coin Grading Service assigned a team of 5 senior graders to evaluate the quarter, and their analysis revealed additional remarkable features that weren't initially apparent, including microscopic die markers that proved the coin was struck by the actual Philadelphia Mint dies used for regular quarter production in 1985. The experimental planchet composition was confirmed through non-destructive spectral analysis that revealed the precise percentages of precious metals present in the alloy, in comparison with mint records that were declassified as part of the authentication process confirmed that experimental planchets matching this composition had indeed been produced in limited quantities during March 1985. The coin received a grade of MS 68, indicating nearly perfect preservation despite having circulated for over 35 years before its discovery. When the coin was offered at auction through Heritage Auctions in 2022, the numismatic world held its collective breath as bidding quickly escalated beyond anything seen in previous error coin sales. The final hammer price of $144 million was achieved after a bidding war between 6 anonymous collectors that lasted over 40 minutes and broke the auction house's electronic bidding system twice due to the unprecedented activity. The winning bidder, later revealed to be a technology entrepreneur from Silicon Valley, stated that owning this coin represented the ultimate intersection of American history, technological innovation, and artistic beauty that could never be replicated. The impact on Emma and her grandmother was immediate and profound. The 7-year-old girl who had noticed something special about a funny quarter became the youngest person in history to discover a coin worth over $100 million. And her family established the Emma Rodriguez Foundation to promote numismatic education in schools and provide scholarships for students interested in studying metallurgy and coin production. The 1985 P quarter's technical specifications continue to fascinate researchers because the sextuple strike pattern creates optical effects that change depending on lighting conditions and viewing angles, making it appear almost alive as light reflects off the overlapping surfaces. Each strike penetrated slightly deeper into the experimental planchet material, creating varying depths of relief that give the coin a three-dimensional quality that's unique among all known error coins. The off-center nature of the strikes means that parts of the original planchet edge are visible, showing the distinctive coloration and texture of the experimental alloy before it was modified by the striking process. Die clash marks present on both sides of the coin indicate that the malfunction also caused the obverse and reverse dies to strike each other directly, transferring ghost images that provide additional authentication points and historical information about the exact sequence of events during the era. The coin's weight of 8.7 grams, significantly heavier than the standard 5.67 grams of a normal quarter, immediately alerts handlers that they're dealing with something extraordinary, and the distinctive sound it makes when dropped on a hard surface has been compared to a small bell due to the unique properties of the experimental alloy. This 1985 P quarter represents more than just an astronomical monetary value. It's a tangible piece of American minting history that demonstrates how even the most sophisticated quality control systems can sometimes create accidents that become priceless treasures, and its discovery by a curious 7-year-old girl proves that the most valuable finds often come from the most unexpected sources, reminding us all to look carefully at the ordinary objects around us because they might not be ordinary at all.